Hey everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my 1947 Aireon Jukebox restoration, more zombification I guess would be the term. In part 1, you saw we did all the lights, got all the animations working and the motor, and used the color changing LEDs and the LED strip lights to add a little motion even to the fluorescence. In this video, we're going to do the audio. Now, this video is not nearly as long or as elaborate because mostly we're not inventing the wheel here. There's a couple things that are important to note in this video, one of which is that I do get the original jukebox speaker to function as the primary speaker using a modern tube amp. Now, there are difficulties in doing this. These old speakers are 16 ohms, so the impedance or ohms is much higher than modern amps, or really almost any amplifier built since the 50s or 60s is ready to push. So you have to bring the impedance down. So at the point in the video where I get there, I'm gonna lay out a couple of scenarios for how to wire your amp to draw the impedance down, because not only old jukeboxes have these high impedance speakers, but old floor radios, things like that. So you may want to incorporate something like this if you're doing a zombie radio and you want to use the original speaker. All right, so I used a modern tube amp for this. I used a Fozzy Model T amp, T3, yeah, T3. Not for any particular reason. It was on sale on Amazon. The reviews were good, very positive. They said the sound had a nice, warm, old-fashioned glow to it, and it was 50 watts per channel, which I figured would be enough, and it ended up being enough. I had to actually add 2 other speakers, which you'll see the reason why, but in the end, what you hear out of the audio is 90% of the original speaker. The other 2 speakers are very small, and they're just like bookshelf, not even really bookshelf. They're very small bookshelf speakers, but 90% of the audio is coming out of that main speaker, which is exactly the way I wanted it. Now, one thing I did not mention in the first video, and I did say I was going to mention it, but the thing is, there's a reason why I thought this jukebox was ideal for this type of scenario where I'm adding a different amp and we're going to Bluetooth in. And the reason for that is that most jukeboxes, the Row AMIs like the Happy Days jukeboxes and the bubblers like the Wurlitzers, the phonograph mechanism, the thing that grabs the records and puts them down and then spins them and you can watch the record play, that's usually behind a glass window. So it's very obvious when the videos are playing that, or when the music is playing, that there's a record. Now this one, kind of like the old Mills jukeboxes in the 30s, this one you cannot see the phonograph mechanism at all. It's actually in one that had one, which this one didn't. It had been removed long ago, I guess. The phonograph mechanism is actually in the lower section of it, and it's behind that glass panel with the lights and animation. So you'd never know in this case. There's no visual cue to let you know that this is actually a zombie and it's not actually a jukebox that's playing music. So that was one of the main reasons. I know I said I would mention that in the last video, and then I completely forgot. I know when I edited the video, I realized it wasn't there. Any other important notes I can name? Okay, I did add a subwoofer. Now, I did because I had a subwoofer. I had that big empty cabinet in the bottom, and this amp had a subwoofer out, which surprised me because I thought it was just to run bookshelf speakers, but it had a sub out. Truth be told, though, that sub, I don't know, you're not going to hear it. If you played hard rock through it, it would kick a little bit because of the drums, but for swing, anything 1940s, Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, Sinatra type music, the Glenn Miller stuff, the Benny Goodman, you're not going to hear the sub kick on. Unfortunately, that being said, in the course of this video, I do test the audio several times, but because of YouTube's copyrights, I really can't let you know how it sounds. There is a clip at the very end that does play through the jukebox that you can hear. but through the most part, in the middle of the video, I just can't do it. They'll maybe even delete my video, which I've seen them do before with videos I've had where I've had other music that was copyrighted. So I will say though, I played Glenn Miller's Stardust, was the first song I played through it, and unbelievable. That speaker in this jukebox is made for this type of music, and I have never heard 1940s music sound like this. You just feel like you're in the room. I played Bing Crosby. It sounds like he's singing right in the room with you. It's just, I can't describe how just fantastic this is. So if you have access to something like this, a jukebox like this, I don't recommend taking one that's functioning or that can be restored and wrecking it. But if you have an opportunity to do what I do here, I highly recommend you do it. It's very easy to do, simple wiring, and this is something I'm going to really enjoy. In fact, since I've done this, I have used it literally every day. It's just one of my favorite things now. And everyone that sees it is just amazed. And it's a weird one. It's a Aireon. I never heard of them. Little history of Aireon. They were an aircraft parts manufacturer. And they grew quite a bit during World War II, as most manufacturing companies did. Post-war, they went into the jukebox business, only for 2 years. They were known as record breakers, not for a good reason. They were known that way because apparently the phonograph mechanism that was in the bottom could grab the records, and they had to fall in a certain way that, according to their competitors, would break the records. And at the time, you didn't want that. I mean, that was a maintenance thing. And also, the records were expensive. Whether that's true or not is somewhat up for debate, but they did only make jukeboxes for 2 years. This is the Aireon 1207A Fiesta, 1947, which I think it was made in 47 and 48. It's not the most famous one that Aireon made, but for my purposes, it's pretty neat. But hey, if you want to look up some history on the company, you can find there's a Wikipedia page that discusses what happened to the company and their jukeboxes, and you can see other pictures, which was great because there's not many people that know what these are, and I had trouble finding any images on this or any history of this, so I'll take what I can get. All right, so we're going to jump in on this video, and I'm kind of testing audio, so it's going to kind of be abrupt how it starts, but I'm just going to go over that. I'm going to show you how I wired it, and unfortunately I can't show you, as I said, I can't show you it being tested, and then we'll wrap it up. So hey, let's get busy. Okay, next step. Since these guys didn't seem to work at all, I'm hooking it up to a couple of these Bose speakers. Let's see, we get sound. Rains as everything in Florida does. Now, unfortunately, in the past, these have been painted. Okay, so it's not the amp. I don't know what the hell with these speakers. I really am perplexed as to why this did not work. I don't know. But that takes that out of the equation. So next step, we're going to use this amp and we're going to test the factory speaker and see if that speaker sounds okay. Let's go back indoors. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to test the speaker, the factory speaker. Let me show you. I'm going to test this guy here, this factory speaker. To do that, I'm going to hook up the stereo channels into mono, and it's pretty easy to do that. Right, Nacho? You just have to connect your two positives. So left channel, right channel positive. So the silver wire is positive. So this is left channel, right channel, positive. Yes, I know I'm using very, very slim speaker wire here. but it'll have to do for now. And then I'm gonna just tap it in with these banana clips to the speaker. Okay, I'll show you what that looks like. I think you can kind of see it though. So we're just clipped on. Let's see what we do. All right, my audio source is coming from here. Just make sure we're connected to the app. Okay, we're connected. All right, let's go play something. Painted, I simply clean them or pop. Very briefly got sound. Carpets, a couple of gloves, and a hose, and that's it. So let's put a music track through it and see what it sounds like. Well, It seems to clip very easily. Okay. The speaker works. It does not work well with this amp. This amp can't take it. But the speaker actually sounds fantastic. So back to the drawing board. Okay, so my theory on why this amp would not power this speaker was it just couldn't handle it. The speaker itself was popping the amp. So what I've done is I've gone left channel, right channel. So we've gone into this speaker left, speaker right, and then come also from this and this into positive and negative. So we've got, I'll have to draw a wiring diagram so you understand all this, but both negatives from these speakers are coming to this, both positives from these, both positives, positive, positive, going here, negative, negative, going here. Now, these speakers are too big to fit in here, but this looks like it. Hopefully, let's try it.
Question is the truth out there? Are you ready to hear?
These are on. Don't ask me to deny. That's on. Okay, so what we now know is that I can use the central speaker. I need two other speakers though to do it. But that was the whole audio setup, minus the actual amp I'm going to use. That was just a little mini amp. But that was the audio setup with the sub, and we need a left and right speaker, and then we can use the center speaker. It's too bad these guys won't fit in here. There's just no room. I'd have to do substantial woodwork cutting, and I don't really want to do that. So we'll have to figure something else out. So this is going to be my impedance reduction test. I'm using the cheap little amp to try this. That speaker in the Jukebox, the original speaker, is 16 ohms. It's a lot. And it's a lot for a little amp like this, or even that tube amp to push. So what I'm doing is I'm taking both positives and I'm going to run them to the right channel speaker. Both negatives. So you see both negatives going to one cable. Both negative channels will go to the left speaker. So this will go to left speaker positive. This will be left speaker negative. Will go to the original speaker. This will be
left speaker. No, this will be left speaker negative. All right, so negatives to the speaker, comes out of the speaker from the positive terminal, goes to the center speaker. From the center speaker, goes to the negative terminal, and this goes to the positive. I know it's kind of confusing, and I'll draw it out on paper. This will obviously negate any stereo effect, which is fine, and hopefully will decrease the impedance so that I don't get the volume cut off that I'm getting. It's an experiment, and that's why I'm using the cheap little amp, the $30 amp, rather than the $130 tube amp, because I don't want to risk blowing the tube amp with this. But on paper, this should work, but I really don't know. Okay, so the result of my experiment was this. It worked, but the volume was significantly lower. It seemed like it sapped a lot of power out of the amplifier. And my other experiment seems to be more successful for wiring. So I'm going to stick with what I had on the tube amp. This was worth doing. It certainly decreased the impedance, but I could raise the volume of this amp to full. But it just, I don't know what to say. It was just a lot less powerful than the other wiring setup, which kind of surprised me. But it did work, so I'll leave a drawing for that. It may work better for your situation. I'm sure you're not going to be doing the same exact setup as this. But anyway, I'll leave a wiring diagram actually for both what I used and this one that I tried. Okay, let's talk about wiring this thing. So here's our 16 ohm speaker, and it's got its two leads, and here is our amp. Our amp has two channels, both with a positive and a negative. So here's where it gets tricky. So to do this with mono, if I only had one positive and one outlet, I could add the two other speakers here and simply do this. Okay. This is a little trickier though, because I've got two positives and two negatives. So here's my first experiment, and this did work. I took both negatives to there. I took both positives to there. Okay, you see that? Positive, positive, negative, negative. Both negatives go to the negative on the bookshelf speaker. Both positives go to the positive on the bookshelf speaker. And then from there, we run through. So the signal does do this. Now, this worked, but the volume or the power of the amp at 50 watts and 50 watts, supposedly, that's what they advertise it as, it wasn't good enough. And if I pushed the amp, it still cut out. So it didn't have any volume. So what I did that worked better, and honestly, I'm a little confused at why this worked better. So here's your main 16 ohm, and I do apologize. I'll actually draw these the way they look this time. My two bookshelf speakers and my amp with plus, minus, plus, minus. Okay. And I don't really know why this worked. So what I did was, we had a plus and a minus here, and a plus and a minus here. What I did was this. right? And then I took the plus from there and the minus from there. So would this have dropped the impedance to a point where it was usable? It should have. I believe these are 4 ohms. In theory, I dropped the whole thing down to 8, but I welcome anyone's input on this because this is a conundrum. Turning a 2-channel amp into a 1-channel 16 ohm and 2 other speakers. But what the result of this was that it would cut out if I really pushed the amp, but it was significantly louder. Like it was easily in the realm of workable volume and loud volume. But this, playing like Glenn Miller and swing music, was plenty loud enough, like quite loud for the room. Was it ideal? Well, I mean, you kind of would have liked the system to be able to push anything through. And in fact, if I simply eliminated this speaker, this amp would have enough power to power almost any other speakers. But I did not want to do that. I wanted to keep that original speaker, and I'm glad I did. But anyway, again, I welcome anyone to come up with a better solution. I'm willing to try anything to see how well it works. But this system did actually work, contrary to what I would have been expecting. All right, I hope this helps. Back to the video.
Okay, so I've got it hooked up. I just tested it on some awesome 1940s music. And so here's the amp I'm going with for authenticity. I got a tube amp. So I couldn't use these speakers, but I had these JVCs and they balance it out. So most of the audio comes out of the factory speaker because that's getting the full left and right mono, but we are getting a left and right as well. And I've even got, this amp has a sub out, so I've got a sub in the base of the cabinet, so I don't need to do anything else in here. So I can kind of wrap it up and put it together, and then tomorrow focus on polishing up the metal and the aesthetics of it. But I gotta tie up all the wiring and get all that settled, and then let's call it a night.
Okay, at this point, I did one more experiment. So here's my 16 ohm, the original Jukebox speaker. And here's my amp. I got plus, minus, plus, minus. And here are my 2 other speakers. Plus, minus, plus, minus. So this last experiment, I did something else that I would think would have overpowered the amp and would have led to it clipping even more. Okay. We've got right channel, left channel. But then from here, I took both negatives and ran them to that. And I took both positives and ran them to that. So the full 2 channels are now going to this. And this is what's in there now. This is what's currently running there. So 50 and 50 watts. 50 going there, 50 going there, and then through this speaker, they're going through these speakers. The signal then goes to the 16 ohm, and this actually sounded even better than the other 2 setups. It does still clip. If you turn it up really loud, it will still clip, but it's certainly loud enough. All right, back to the video.
was easy. Spare wires. Those spare wires. Remotes for the lights. Everything's lit. Awesome. There's the amp that I put in. It's a Fozzy. I think I got it for about $120, and it has tubes, and it's 50 watts per channel. Maybe it would have been better to go 100, but this seems to work out pretty well. Ignore that flashing. That's the extra of my LED strips that I did not need to use. It's just reacting to me talking. Let me take this opportunity to explain how the wiring is actually working. Maybe I can show you better this way. So you got left and right speakers. So you've got left goes out to here, and then from the left, the wires connect to the big speaker. You got right goes out to here, and then from the right, the wires also connect to the big speaker. So these are getting half a signal, and that's getting a full signal. However, it works and it sounds fantastic. And I always have the opportunity with these zombies to upgrade if I want to go with the more expensive tube amp. But the tube amp really works. I mean, this thing sounds spectacular. Okay, that's it. And here it is in its new home. It's got its own corner, and it has very quickly become one of my very favorite things. I have rediscovered the joy of just sitting and listening to great music. I haven't tried classical through this, but with this original speaker and the modern tube amp, I've never heard big band and swing music like Dean Martin and Bing Crosby and Sinatra. Never heard it sound like it sounds like this. It sounds like you're in the room. Just incredible. So I hope you found this video at the very least entertaining, but if you found it inspirational, go out and find yourself one of these. You can do it. It's not that hard. This thing must have wanted to come back and play music again, because the lights pretty much, they all came work. This motor, which I think it's moving. Yeah, it's moving. This motor still works. I have to kind of, because sometimes it stops and then it starts again. Even the fluorescent lights still worked. I mean, that's incredible. It was very easy to do overall. I mean, yeah, it took me a weekend, but that's because I had to plan it out. Hopefully this video gives you the steps and shows you what you may need to expect when you do your own. So please like and subscribe to my channel. It's a new channel. It's been out 5 months now. I just hit 50 videos. The Jukebox videos are number 51 and 52. And I'd like to grow the channel some more. I'd like to reach a broader audience. So tell your friends, share these videos. And I hope you're not mad at me for what I did to a classic 70-something euro jukebox. I hope you accept it. It was, it was destined to the scrapyard. We brought it back, and now it's got a new home. So if you want to take on something like this, as I always say, don't be intimidated. Just go out. Get busy. Take care.